It's late at night, the kind of silence that feels heavier than usual, like the world has paused just long enough for your thoughts to grow louder. Your phone lights up beside you, breaking that stillness. You glance at it absent-mindedly, expecting nothing, maybe a notification, maybe something irrelevant. But then you see the name. That name. The one you never truly erased, not from your phone, not from your heart. For a moment, everything inside you freezes. Your breath catches halfway, your fingers hesitate, and your chest tightens in a way that feels both familiar and terrifying. You had convinced yourself you were okay, that time had done its job, that distance had built the walls you needed. But one call, just one call, and suddenly all those walls feel like they were made of paper. You don't answer immediately. You just stare at it, watching it ring, as memories begin to rise, soft laughter, unfinished conversations, the way things ended without really ending. You remember the truth you tried to accept: they are not yours. They were never meant to be. Life chose a different path for them, for both of you. And yet, here they are, calling you in the quietest hour of the night, when defenses are weakest and emotions are hardest to hide. Your mind races with questions you're almost afraid to answer. Why now? What could they possibly want? Is everything okay? Or is this one of those moments where the heart forgets logic and reaches for what it once called home? You finally pick up. There's a pause on the other side, a breath, as if they're unsure too. And then their voice, soft, familiar, unchanged, wraps around you like something you never truly let go of. And in that single second, you realize something painful: you didn't move on, you just learned how to live without them. They don't say much at first. Just your name. But the way they say it, it carries years of unsaid things, of choices made and paths taken. You respond, trying to sound normal, trying to keep your voice steady, but inside, everything is unraveling. You want to ask why they called, but you're scared of the answer. Because deep down, you know this call isn't random. Calls like this never are. There's always a reason, and sometimes that reason is more dangerous than silence. They start talking, about life, about how things have been, about how they just thought of you. Simple words, casual even. But you hear what's hidden beneath them. You hear the pause before every sentence, the weight behind every sigh. You hear the part they're not saying, that something is missing. And for a moment, just a moment, your heart dares to imagine something it shouldn't, that maybe, just maybe, they feel it too. That maybe you weren't the only one who had to learn how to pretend. But reality is never that kind. Because in the middle of this fragile, almost dreamlike conversation, the truth still stands between you like an unbreakable wall: they belong to someone else. They chose a life where you are not a part of the future. And no matter how much this moment feels like the past returning, it isn't. It's just a reminder of what you lost, or maybe what you never truly had. The conversation drifts, moving between memories and present, between what was and what can never be. They laugh softly at something you both remember, and for a second, it feels like nothing has changed. Like you're still those same two people who once believed timing would be on their side. But then the silence creeps back in, heavier this time. Because both of you know this isn't just nostalgia, its unfinished emotion finding a way to breathe again. And then, finally, they say it. Not directly, not boldly, but in a way that only you would understand. They tell you they were thinking about you, that some days feel incomplete, that life turned out differently than they expected. And it hits you harder than anything else could. Because this isn't closure. This isn't healing. This is longing, quiet, restrained, but very real. And suddenly, you're standing at the edge of a choice you thought you had already made. You could lean into this moment, let the conversation go deeper, let the feelings resurface, let yourself believe in something impossible again. Or you could do the hardest thing you've ever had to do, protect both of you from what this could become. Because love like this doesn't just stay innocent. It grows. It pulls. It demands. And eventually, it breaks things that shouldn't be broken. You close your eyes for a moment, listening to their voice, feeling everything you buried come rushing back. You wish things were different. You wish timing had been kinder. You wish you didn't have to be the strong one again. But then you remember why you let go in the first place. Not because you didn't love them, but because you did. Because real love doesn't destroy lives to prove it exists. Real love chooses integrity, even when it hurts, even when it means walking away from the one person who feels like home. Your voice softens as you respond, careful with every word, as if one wrong sentence could undo everything you've rebuilt. You don't push them away harshly, but you don't let them come closer either. You stay in that fragile space where care exists without crossing the line. And they understand. Maybe not fully, maybe not happily, but they do. There's another silence, this one heavier, final. And in that silence, everything is said. The truth, the love, the goodbye that neither of you says out loud. When the call finally ends, the room feels quieter than before, but your heart feels louder. You sit there, staring at the screen again, but this time, there's no confusion. Just a deep, aching clarity. They didn't call to change anything. They called because some connections never really fade, they just learn how to stay hidden. And tonight, for a brief moment, yours found its way back to the surface. But you know what to do with it now. You let it pass. You let it hurt. And then, you let it go. Again. After the call ends, the silence in your room feels different than it did before. It's no longer peaceful, it's heavy, almost suffocating, like the air itself is holding on to everything you didn't say. You place your phone down slowly, but your hand lingers over it, as if a part of you is still hoping it might light up again. Not because you need answers, you already know them, but because some part of your heart is still not ready to accept that this moment is over. You lean back, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of that conversation in your mind, analyzing the pauses, the tone, the hidden meanings behind simple words. And the more you think about it, the more you realize something that hurts in a quiet, undeniable way. They didn't call to come back, they called because they couldn't fully leave. And neither could you. That's the truth you've been avoiding all this time. You both moved forward, built separate lives, made decisions that made sense in the daylight, in the logic of reality. But emotions don't follow logic, do they? They don't care about timing or circumstances or commitments. They just exist, lingering in the background, waiting for moments like this, moments of vulnerability, of loneliness, of reflection, when they can finally rise to the surface again. You close your eyes, and suddenly you're not in this room anymore. You're back in those memories, the ones you tried so hard not to revisit. The way they used to look at you like you were enough. The way conversations flowed effortlessly, like silence was never awkward, just comfortable. The way you both believed, at some point, that this was it, that this was the kind of connection people spend lifetimes searching for. And maybe it was. Maybe it still is. But the cruelest part about life is that finding something real doesn't always mean you get to keep it. Sometimes, you meet the right person at the wrong time. Sometimes, love arrives in a form that the world doesn't allow you to hold on to. And sometimes, the strongest connections are the ones you're forced to let go of, not because they're weak, but because they're too powerful to exist in the wrong circumstances without causing damage. You sit up, running your hands through your hair, trying to ground yourself in the present. Because that's where you are now. Not in the past. Not in the what-ifs. But here, in a reality where they belong to someone else, and you've chosen to respect that, even when it feels like your own heart is being pulled in two different directions. You wonder what they're doing right now. Are they lying awake too, staring at their ceiling, thinking about you the same way you're thinking about them? Or have they already slipped back into their life, their routine, their responsibilities, leaving this call behind as just a moment of weakness they'll pretend didn't mean much? The thought stings more than you expected. Because for you, it meant everything. It reopened doors you had spent so long closing. It reminded you of feelings you worked so hard to quiet down. And now, you're left here, holding all of it again, trying to figure out where to place it so it doesn't break you. But maybe that's the thing, you don't place it anywhere. You just feel it. Fully, honestly, without running from it this time. Because pretending it's not there has never really worked, has it? You've tried ignoring it, burying it, distracting yourself with other things, other people, other versions of happiness. But nothing ever replaced what you had with them. It just coexisted alongside it. And maybe that's okay. Maybe some connections aren't meant to be replaced. Maybe they're meant to stay with you, quietly shaping who you are, teaching you things about love that no one else ever could. But that doesn't mean they're meant to be lived out. That's the part that hurts. That's the part people don't talk about enough, that you can love someone deeply, truly, endlessly, and still choose not to be with them. Not because you don't want to, but because you understand that love isn't just about what you feel. It's about what you choose to do with those feelings. And tonight, you made that choice again. You chose restraint. You chose respect. You chose a kind of love that doesn't demand, doesn't take, doesn't disrupt. A kind of love that stands at a distance and says, I care about you enough not to ruin your life, even if it means breaking my own heart a little more. And maybe they felt that too. Maybe that's why they didn't push further, didn't say the things that were clearly sitting on the edge of their voice. Maybe they were hoping you would be the strong one, because they weren't sure if they could be. And you were. Even when it hurt. Even when every part of you wanted to hold on to that moment just a little longer. Even when your heart whispered, "What if," louder than your mind could handle. You look at your phone again, but this time, there's a different kind of acceptance settling in. Not peace, not yet, but something close to it. A quiet understanding that this is how it has to be. That some stories don't get the ending they deserve, not because they're not worthy, but because life isn't always written in fairness. It's written in choices. And sometimes, the most painful choices are the ones that define you the most. You get up, walking slowly to the window, looking out into the night that seems to stretch endlessly, just like your thoughts. Somewhere out there, under the same sky, they exist, living a life that doesn't include you the way you once imagined it would. And that's okay. It has to be okay. Because love isn't about possession. It's about understanding. It's about knowing when to hold on, and when to let go, even if the feeling never really leaves. You take a deep breath, letting it out slowly, as if you're releasing everything that stirred inside you. And maybe you are, little by little. Not all at once, not perfectly, but enough to move forward. Because that's what you've been doing all along, haven't you? Moving forward, even when a part of you stayed behind. Living your life, even while carrying a love that never fully found its place. And maybe that's your story. Not a tragic one, not a broken one, but a real one. A story about loving deeply and choosing wisely. About feeling everything and still doing the right thing. About understanding that some people are meant to change your life, not stay in it forever. And as you stand there, in the quiet of the night, you realize something that doesn't make the pain disappear, but makes it easier to carry. You don't regret loving them. Not even a little. Because what you had was real. What you felt was real. And even if it couldn't become what you once hoped it would be, it still mattered. It still shaped you. It still taught you what love is supposed to feel like, not just the happiness, but the sacrifice, the patience, the strength it takes to choose someone's well-being over your own desires. You turn away from the window, finally ready to lie down again, not because everything is okay, but because you know it will be. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not soon, but eventually. Because you've survived this before. You felt this ache, this pull, this quiet heartbreak that doesn't show on the outside but lingers deeply within. And you made it through. You will again. The difference is, this time, you understand it better. This time, you're not confused by it. You're not questioning your worth or your place in their life. You know exactly where you stand, and you've chosen that place yourself. And that makes all the difference. As you close your eyes, sleep doesn't come immediately. Your mind is still full, your heart still heavy. But there's a strange kind of calm beneath it all, a sense that, despite everything, you did the right thing. And sometimes, that has to be enough. Because not all love stories are meant to be lived out loud. Some are meant to be carried quietly, with dignity, with respect, with a kind of strength that not everyone understands. And yours is one of those stories. A story that doesn't need a perfect ending to be meaningful. A story that exists in the spaces between what is and what could have been. A story that reminds you, even in its pain, that you are capable of a love so deep, so selfless, so real, that it chooses integrity over desire, every single time morning arrives quietly, almost as if it's trying not to disturb what the night left behind inside you. The light slips through your window in soft lines, touching your face, pulling you gently out of a sleep that never fully held you. You open your eyes slowly, and for a few seconds, there's nothing, no thoughts, no memories, just a blank stillness. But then it comes back. Not all at once, not like a storm, but like a tide that knows exactly how to return, steady, inevitable. The call. Their voice. The silence after. You sit up, exhaling deeply, feeling that same weight in your chest, but something about it has changed. It's still there, yes, but it's no longer chaotic. It's settled now, like a truth your heart has finally stopped arguing with. You reach for your phone, not out of hope this time, but out of habit. No new messages. No missed calls. Just the same quiet screen reflecting back a version of you that looks a little more tired, but also, a little more certain. And that's when it truly hits you, not in a painful way, but in a clear, grounding one. Last night wasn't the beginning of something. It was the closure you never allowed yourself to have. Not the kind where everything is said perfectly and tied into neat endings, but the kind where you finally see things as they are, without illusions, without what-ifs clouding your judgment. They didn't call to come back. They didn't call to change their life. And you didn't answer to change yours. You both showed up in that moment as who you are now, not who you used to be. And maybe that's what makes it final. You get out of bed slowly, moving through your space with a quiet awareness, as if everything feels slightly different today. Not because the world changed, but because something inside you did. You make your morning the way you always do, small routines that once felt automatic now carrying a strange kind of meaning. Because for the first time in a long time, you're not holding on to a hidden hope. You're not waiting for something that may never happen. You're not telling yourself stories about timing and destiny and second chances. You're just here. Present. Honest. And it feels unfamiliar, but also freeing. As the day moves forward, you notice how your thoughts still drift back to them, but it's softer now. Less desperate, less consuming. It's not a wound being reopened, it's a memory being acknowledged. You remember the way they said your name, the hesitation in their voice, the things they didn't say but you still understood. And instead of letting it pull you back into longing, you let it pass through you. Because now you see it for what it was, not a sign to hold on, but a reminder of why you had to let go. Some connections don't end with a clear goodbye. They fade, they linger, they find ways to reappear just when you think you've moved past them. But that doesn't mean they're meant to continue. Sometimes, they return only to show you how much you've grown, how differently you can handle what once would have broken you. And you did handle it differently. That's what matters. You didn't fall back into old patterns. You didn't let emotions override your values. You didn't chase something you know isn't yours to have. You stood your ground, quietly, respectfully, without needing to prove anything to anyone. And that strength, it doesn't feel loud or dramatic. It feels calm. It feels steady. It feels like finally becoming the person you needed to be all along. There's a moment, somewhere in the middle of your day, where you pause and really think about everything, not just the call, but the entire journey that led to it. The way you met, the way things grew, the way they slipped out of your life not with a bang, but with a quiet, complicated distance. And you realize something that changes everything: you were never meant to lose them. You were meant to experience them. There's a difference. Losing implies something went wrong, something failed, something was taken away unfairly. But experiencing, that means it happened exactly as it needed to. That it came into your life to teach you, to shape you, to show you a depth of love that you might not have discovered otherwise. And just because it didn't last forever doesn't mean it wasn't real. In fact, sometimes the most real things are the ones that don't stay, because they're not meant to be possessed, they're meant to be understood. You carry that realization with you, and it softens something deep inside your chest. The ache is still there, but it's no longer sharp. It's gentle now, almost like a quiet echo instead of a loud noise. You think about them, not with the need to reach out, not with the urge to hear their voice again, but with a kind of acceptance that feels new. You hope they're okay. You hope they find peace in the life they chose. You hope they feel loved in ways that don't leave them searching in the middle of the night. And for the first time, those hopes don't include you, and that doesn't hurt as much as it used to. Because you've finally let go of the idea that you were supposed to be a part of their ending. Maybe you were just a chapter. A meaningful one, an unforgettable one, but still, a chapter. And that's enough. That has to be enough. As evening approaches, you find yourself back in your room, the same place where everything felt so overwhelming just hours ago. But now, it feels different. Lighter. Not empty, but peaceful. You sit down, looking around, realizing that your life is still here, still waiting for you to fully step into it. And maybe that's what this was all about, not them coming back, not love returning, but you returning to yourself. The version of you that doesn't live in the past, that doesn't hold on to things that aren't meant to stay, that understands the difference between what feels right and what actually is right. You take a deep breath, letting it fill your lungs completely, and then you let it go. And with it, you release the last bit of resistance you've been holding on to. Not the love, you don't need to erase that. But the attachment, the hope, the quiet waiting, you let that go. Because you don't need it anymore. You've outgrown it. You've understood it. You've honored it. And now, you're ready to move forward without it weighing you down. The night comes again, just like it did before, but this time, it doesn't feel heavy. It feels calm, like a chapter has truly closed, not with dramatic endings or final words, but with a quiet understanding that everything is exactly as it should be. You lie down, your mind no longer racing, your heart no longer pulling you in opposite directions. And as you close your eyes, there's one last thought that passes through you, not sad, not longing, just honest. If they ever call again, it won't shake you the same way. Not because they stopped mattering, but because you've finally learned where they belong in your story. Not in your present. Not in your future. But in a place that's safe, respected, and complete, the past. And with that, you finally allow yourself to rest, not just your body, but your heart too. Because some endings aren't about losing someone. They're about finding yourself again. And this time, you did.